In September 1988, Interface Incorporated completed the acquisition of Hugo Holding BV of the Netherlands. The transaction instantly more than doubled Interface's core business and made it the world's largest manufacturer and marketer of carpet tiles, drawing together into one corporate entity the largest carpet tile companies in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Since then, we've been engaged in a comprehensive worldwide integration program that involves manufacturing, research and development, distribution, sales, and marketing to bring these two companies together. It's no small task doubling your size, but our history is a story of growth. This is simply the next chapter. Today, I want to share some of that story with you as background. To put this into context, I'm going to capsule the first 16 years of our existence into about 16 minutes, taking you from the origin of our company through its development into a national company, then into an international company, and most recently into a global company. A good place to start is on a day in June of 1969 when I saw for the first time and fell in love with an idea. The idea was carpet tiles, modular carpet. It was a European idea, and I thought it made so much sense that I spent the next 3.5 years of my life pursuing it for someone else. At what turned out to be the right time, everybody knows it's better to be lucky than good, I cut the corporate umbilical cord and have been pursuing that idea for our corporation ever since. Here's the product. It was quite new in the United States in 1973, and here's the market, the office market. I had only the vaguest notion at the time that a revolution was about to happen in the office. A burgeoning white-collar workforce in an increasingly service-oriented economy was about to create unprecedented demands on corporate and institutional America. A whole new industry was coming into existence, the office systems industry, dedicated to taking a wide-open space like this and converting it into a functional, efficient, and beautiful workplace. The open-plan concept of interior design was taking hold. Interior walls began to disappear, workstations began to come with their own walls. The wiring that tied the whole office together became more complex, particularly with the growth of office automation. In-floor wire distribution was being developed to deal with the growing wire management problem. This is cellular deck, wiring ductwork built into the floor. The concrete floor is poured over these ducts, burying them in the floor. The preset openings provide access to the wiring carried by the conduits. This is raised floor. You used to see this only in the computer room. Now whole buildings are being built this way. That plenum providing practically unlimited capacity to carry wiring and even plumbing. This new office demanded a new kind of carpet. Broadloom carpet, wall to wall, no longer filled the bill. It was quickly cut to pieces by the electrician's knife. It couldn't stand the abuse of high-intensity usage, and when it had to be replaced, it was extremely disruptive and expensive. The new and better way was carpet tiles, modular carpet, removable for easy access to in-floor electricals, easily replaceable when worn or damaged, and we had the best technology in the world to make this product and make it dimensionally stable for free-lay installation, no glue required to keep it in place. The technology came from an English company, Carpets International, CI. I'll refer to them from time to time as CI. The largest and most diversified and most successful carpet manufacturer outside the United States in those days. CI started out with us as a 50% partner. At that time, a unique Anglo-American joint venture. Our timing, 1973, was where we got lucky. The rate of growth in the white-collar workforce was about to increase from about 100,000 net new jobs per year in 1974 to about 800,000 net new jobs per year by 1978. New office construction exploded all over America to keep pace with demand. The concept caught on, our sales grew. Here's 16 years of sales, from a dead standing start in 1973 to Fortune's 500 list in 1989. And here are earnings over that same period of time. As the marketplace has grown in global scope, it has also evolved, more and more beautiful, with designs increasingly influenced by professional specifiers. Interface's evolution, likewise, has progressed, in retrospect, through some very distinct phases, each phase placing different demands on management. I want to take you through those phases against the backdrop of that growth pattern we just looked at. The names I put on the phases may not correspond to textbook terminology, but believe me, they are appropriate. Starting with a blank slate, the first phase I call conception and gestation. That included a year, 1972, of cultivating Carpets International, convincing them to cast their lot with little old me in the world's biggest marketplace, the United States, leading to the last step, very much analogous to the pain of giving birth, that period of time from when I gave up corporate security until I had the equity financing raised, the scariest 7 weeks of my life. I put in the initial equity of $50,000, then raised another $1,200,000 from 16 investors, 15 Americans, and the English company CI. Then and only then was our company born, when it had its beginning paid-in capital in hand. April the 6th, 1973 was Interface's birthday, followed by a year of building and startup. 10 acres of pine trees in LaGrange, Georgia. A factory was built, equipment installed and commissioned. That was the easy part. We started up our marketing effort in the spring of 1974 and quickly found ourselves in the teeth of the worst recession since 1929. I remember like it was yesterday, a day in August 1974 when we had not one order on the books, not one. That branded in my brain, for as long as I'll live, the veritable truth that you're always just one order away from being out of business. The next order is like the next heartbeat. 1974, our startup year, we sold $800,000 worth of carpet towels and lost $400,000, nearly a third of our beginning equity. But 1975, our first full year of operation, sales tripled and we actually made a profit, the single most important accomplishment of our 16-year existence. It meant survival. The next 5 years are a blur to me today. Call it the phase of rapid growth, 70% per year, compounded. We found our market, new corporate office buildings. We learned how to sell it, showing the owner a return on investment for his investment in Interface carpet tiles. We grew the sales force and we expanded. There was never a time we didn't have a plant expansion going on. It was a nose to the grindstone phase, never looking up. And we emerged from this phase as the market leader in the United States, selling corporate America a better way to carpet its offices. Things were going great. Life was relatively simple. Then trouble in River City, meaning the River Thames, of course. One morning on the London Stock Exchange, in what's called a dawn raid, a Hong Kong company acquired 29.9% of the shares of Carpets International. The rule at the time was that at 30%, they would have to tender for all. They stopped at the threshold, 29.9%. To us, it meant the imminent prospect of a Chinese partner replacing our English partner. We called it the yellow peril. With this dawning awareness of a bigger picture, life began to get complicated. The Chinese were able to buy 29.9% that morning because the stock was available. It was available because CI had fallen on bad times. During our years of ascendancy, they were being decimated by a strong pound sterling and a deluge of imports into the UK. Frankly, we used CI's bad fortune as the opportunity to break the 50-50 tie in our shareholder structure. In 1981, the American side bought 10 of their 50%. They needed the money, and that brought our ownership to 60% American. We had control of our destiny. The Chinese, they actually never went any further and disappeared as CI shareholders in the next few years. 1982, 83, and 84 represent a phase that I call internationalization. A better description to some was confusion. A lot happened to us. For one thing, we woke up to the fact that we had something the whole world needed. We found ourselves selling carpet tiles in Canada, despite a tariff and freight disadvantage of 30 to 40%. American architects were busy in Saudi Arabia. It was under construction in those days, and they were specifying our products. Carpets International's troubles continued, and that brought us an intriguing opportunity. There was a carpet tile manufacturer in Northern Ireland that was about to go bust for lack of marketing. CI wanted to acquire it and put it into their carpet tile business, a perfect fit. But by then, the banks wouldn't lend CI a toothbrush, so CI asked us to look at the situation. We liked it, and we bought it. We appointed CI as our distributor in the UK. The business was profitable from the first month we owned it. Canada was not so easy. We wanted to get to the other side of that tariff barrier. The only way that we could find was to buy an existing company out of receivership, which we did. What followed was a very long, hard turnaround that took years, but we had our toehold on the international scene. Then a challenge we weren't looking for. CI nearly went under. At the end of 1982, they had lost £8 million that year alone and owed £30 million to the banks without any hope of ever paying it back. And they still owned 40% of us. We were still private and closely held, but we were concerned about what might happen to that 40%. When CI called for help, we took a look and decided that in our interest, CI should be saved and could be saved if its UK operating subsidiary could be turned around. That's where the £8 million hemorrhage was. I calculated that 1,000 jobs had to go, mostly in the fixed cost SG&A category. The English management said no way. I said, then you don't have a company. And of course, I won the showdown. But in England, the termination of 1,000 people would cost CI $5.3 million in severance pay. CI didn't have the money and couldn't afford to do the one thing that would save it. So we agreed to lend them £2.5 million, about $4 million at the time, to fund this redundancy cost for the first 750 people. We made that loan a convertible loan, convertible into 41% of the equity of CI. We took an option on another 9% so that the conversion and the exercise together would give us controlling 50% interest anytime in the next 5 years. A complete role reversal. Child becomes parent. CI got the money from us per head only when the people were literally off the premises. 3 years later, almost exactly 1,000 people were gone, and CI UK, the loss maker, was profitable again. We did some strategic things to pay down that £30 million of debt, things that helped shape our own future. In April 1983, we took Interface public on NASDAQ. We allowed CI to be a selling shareholder and sell 10 of its remaining 40%. The proceeds went to pay down their debt. We bought CI's carpet tile business to gain direct control of it, the one that was already selling our Northern Ireland production. We forced the liquidation of a hodgepodge of investments that CI had around the world. All the proceeds went to pay down CI's debt. And most importantly for Interface, we identified a prospective buyer for the CI UK subsidiary, now reduced to just broadly manufacturing. And we went to work cultivating that prospective buyer. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, in our main business, new office construction turned down in 1982 for the first time in 7 years. Our U.S. sales had paralleled new construction exactly until then. Now they went flat. It scared us to death. In the midst of all of the CI turmoil and distraction, we realized that we had to reorient the marketing of our core business away from new office construction, and fast. We rapidly shifted emphasis from new construction to renovation and other markets, healthcare in particular. To gain an edge in healthcare, we bought a small research company that had developed an antimicrobial chemical. This chemical made our carpet tiles self-sanitizing even when things like this happened, and for the life of the product. A world-class invention, and not just for carpets, but for other products as well. We named the chemical Intercept, and we formed a new subsidiary, Interface Research Corporation, to develop Intercept for those other uses, products we might make and products that others might make, using Intercept as an additive under license from us. Altogether, it was a very busy time, and to the financial community, a confusing and troubling time. With all of this going on, plus 2 other small acquisitions and a divestment not really worth describing in detail here, there was a terrible computer fiasco in our LaGrange business that nearly shut us down. The result? A drop in earnings in 1984, which sent our stock from its high of 32.5 following the IPO to a low of 6.5 in November 1984. Now that's from 16.25 to 3.25 on the present post-split basis, an 80% drop on a 22% decline in earnings. We viewed this as a small but expensive step backward, probably necessary for a big step forward. 1985 brought a light at the end of the tunnel. Turnaround success in Canada, in the UK carpet tile business, in CI UK, and a buyer for CI UK. We converted the CI rescue loan into equity, took effective control of CI with 41%, and forced through the sale of CI UK, and then began to look for an acquisition where we could use the value we were salvaging out of CI. The marketing reorientation in the U.S. began to work too. Healthcare quickly grew to 10% of our U.S. business. Renovation became more than half. Other markets too, like airports and museums and libraries and health clubs, all began to use carpet tiles. And jumping ahead for a second, when the next downturn in new office construction came in the United States, we were ready for it. And our U.S. sales, after some hesitation in 1986, grew right through it. But back to 1986, we finally brought order out of chaos. We found a super acquisition where we could use the value salvaged out of CI, which was now renamed Debron Investments. It had no operations left, just cash and Interface stock, representing about 26% of us. We exercised that last 9% option and moved to a 50% position, and used Debron, a UK company, to buy Guilford Industries, a US company, for $97 million, $20 million in cash and $77 million in bank debt. What a nice company. Guilford makes the fabrics that go into that furniture that comes with its own walls or panels. In fact, Guilford makes more than half of all the panel fabrics used in systems furniture in the United States. That's the furniture that sits on Interface carpet, of course. The tie-in is obvious. Coordinated product lines and the same end users, just different channels of distribution. In our annual report for 1986, we articulated the first time our corporate strategy, diversify and integrate worldwide. The strategy that actually had been guiding us for several years. The next phase I'll call expanding the base. We began 1987 by making a key move. We acquired a small chemical company in Georgia and gained a quality of expertise we had never had before in our research program with Intercept and in our carpet and fabric businesses. So much of what we do is chemistry. We not only acquired this technical competence, but also an interesting, growing, and profitable chemical business in its own right. We also bought the other half of Debron, which now owned Guilford, the half still owned by the UK public. We did it through a public tender offer in the UK and financed that purchase in the UK with our own public offering, our second one, here in the United States. In the process of acquiring CI, call it Debron now, in the 2 stages, 1985 and 1987, we were able to retire to Treasury those shares of Interface that Debron still owned. So the 3.2 million new shares issued in our public offering for some $64 million in 1987 were largely offset by the retirement of 1.8 million, worth about $38 million, a very unusual anti-dilutive public offering and takeover. The CI experience was over. In 3 years, we had paid off 30 million pounds of debt and salvaged $58 million from a company that was gone but for our rescue, and applied the $58 million to the acquisition of Guilford. And we had strengthened as well as expanded the base of Interface. It now consisted of carpet tiles, interior fabrics, and chemicals, 3 related businesses, underlined related, with a significant international dimension. In carpet tiles, sales outside the United States had become more than 40% of the business. But 1988 presented us with an opportunity to become instantly global in our carpet tile business. The largest carpet tile company in the world was Hugo, a Dutch company, but its presence was about 95% outside the United States. Interface was second largest. Our presence was roughly 60-40 U.S. overseas. We had tried to acquire Hugo in 1983 from its founding family. One reason we went public in 1983 was to raise the war chest to buy Hugo then. But we lost it, and we spent our war chest on the other acquisitions I've talked about. In 1988, the folks who ended up with Hugo, Mott Edison, the big Italian chemical company, decided to divest. We bought Hugo for $150 million in an LBO, which we financed with bank debt and followed with our third public offering, this one a convertible debenture offering that raised $104 million. Now here's the geographical distribution of 1988 sales. This is Interface without Hugo. Here's Hugo. Here's the combined. With a major position in every part of the world, the combined company has remarkable geographical balance. Sales for 1988, if the two companies had been one for the full year, would have ranked the company number 461 in Fortune's 500. In any race among carpet companies to become global, we have won by a mile, maybe by a decade. We're operating in a global market segment of about $1 billion of a $20 billion carpet market, or about 5% in money terms, less in volume terms. But we have about 45% of the segment, with the largest market share in just about every one of the 90 countries in which we sell. And the segment is growing at about 15% per year worldwide, compared to just 2 to 3% for the Broadland segment. We're already in the midst of the next phase, integration. We will be putting Interface and Hugo together at least through 1991, and we believe we'll be realizing very substantial added value, a better word than synergy. There are lots of areas of strategic advantage. People lead the list in any such tabulation. If you don't get the people right, nothing else follows. The geographic fit is phenomenal. We've already seen that. The technologies are also complementary in many ways, and so are end-use markets. For example, 25% of Hugo's business is in residential market, a market Interface has never attempted to enter. In research and development, the programs were largely duplicative, but we've eliminated those duplications already and consolidated a research and development program into a more effective program for less money. In style and design, Interface is a world leader. Hugo can benefit from that style and design. And by the same token, Hugo has many technical features in its products which Interface can draw on. In logistics, there are many opportunities. Interface manufactures in the UK for sale in continental Europe. Hugo manufactures in continental Europe for sale in the UK. The shipping companies make a lot of money off of us. We think we can save a lot of that for ourselves through a program of production rationalization. But that's a long-range project and will be ongoing for several years. In purchasing, we've already made significant savings as we've combined our purchasing power, particularly in Europe. For a while, our priorities will be internal growth, profit improvement, and reduction of debt until that next irresistible opportunity comes along. Well, we've had a lot of experiences since 1973. from conception and gestation, the initial financing, the birth of a company, startup, pioneering a new product in a new market, survival, rapid growth, plant expansions. There's that original plant now expanded 10 times, the largest of 16 manufacturing locations in the world. Internationalization, diversification through acquisition and mergers, rescue of a major UK company and a massive cost reduction effort there, turnarounds, going public, divestments, rationalization, public tender in a foreign country, public offerings of equity and converts here in the United States, LBOs, and now globalization and integration on a global scale. To give credit where credit's due, 3 of our top 10 managers have been involved from the beginning. The 4th of the original 4 has retired. The other managers have come aboard along the way as the needs have developed and with acquisitions. They're a good team. Our sales organization is tops in the industry, and our manufacturing and administrative arms do a remarkable job of managing extremely complex operations. Also, it's fair to say that we couldn't have done it without the help of some other people. Our professional advisors on the legal and accounting side, and the financial institutions with whom we've worked so closely. As much money as we owe, they are too many and too numerous to name. And finally, we never forget all of those other people, investors, private and institutional, who've put their money into Interface. Here's the growing, changing capital structure of Interface through the years. Equity, initial equity, internally generated equity, and equity from public offerings, also debt, and quasi-equity, all have been used. Other people's money is nice to have. So far, I do think we have used their money well. One thing is for sure, it has been indispensable in the process of getting from nothing but a gleam in a fellow's eye to something a fellow could spend an hour or two talking about. Thank you for listening for these few minutes.